I never looked at UFC 300 as a microcosm or possibly even a little finals bracket in the lightweight division, but it appears to be that. And I got some problems with it, quite frankly. So the story is going to be whatever story gets told. That's why it is so important that you tell your story first, you tell it better, you tell it louder. And if that doesn't do it, then tell it again and tell it again. We got election cycles going on. Big campaigns going on this year. And I will use that as an example because it will be mind-numbingly boring if you follow politics. You will have 1 to 5 days in 10 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, or maximum 5 days where you'll get something new. But all day, every day, on the news channels, you're going to hear the candidates speaking back and forth. They're just going to say the same thing. It's never going to change. Their tone might change a little bit, but they're going to say the same thing. They're going to try to say it louder and better and more times than the other guy. That's it. That's the game, and then you go to the polls. This is not rocket science. It is not sophisticated. So, when you're trying to get a fight, that's also a campaign. And the way that the story is being told right now is that Justin Gaethje, who I believe is the #1 contender, is not the #1 contender. And that is official. That is official because Islam Makhachev put out a tweet with his schedule. He said he's going to fight June 9th against the winner of Charles Oliveira and Arum. And he says that he's going to fight at Madison Square Garden down the road, and he's got that opponent picked as well. I mean, I'm just sharing, and even if I screwed that up, please don't correct me. My point is, Islam has already said who he's fighting, and he said what order, and he's given a rough view of the dates, June 9th and somewhere in November. Come on, I can remember this pretty good. He did a very good job of letting us know what to look for. But how did we get to that conclusion? Justin Gaethje's next. Now, if Justin Gaethje accepts a fight with somebody else, the statement I just made is no longer factual. It's no longer a guarantee that he's next if he's accepted a fight. He's risking it. He's putting it all on the line. But it does come back into play as factual when the other person in the conversation, Charles Oliveira, is doing the same thing. Oh, by the way, he's doing it on the same night. Oh, by the way, how did Charles become the #1 contender? Why do we keep saying that? Charles was offered Islam many times. According to Charles's coach, his own coach, he was offered Islam the first time in the locker room the night that he lost to Islam. He turned it down in Volkanovski. He was offered it again, according to the media. He signed a contract, but he told us no 3 times. 3 times he told the community, I'm not fighting that guy. But somewhere he did sign a contract that said he was. He then, something happens. It's the best I can tell you. Something happens. And he pulls out of the fight. He does exactly what he said, which is, I'm not going to fight that guy. The opportunity presents itself again. Now, this one is quiet. This one, bout agreements aren't done. This one, announcements on SportsCenter don't come out. But he was offered it again. He said no. And then we hear from Islam, and Islam says, I don't want to fight him either. I want some parity. I want to mix it up. I've been in there with Volk a couple of times that I never wanted to do, fighting a smaller guy. I mean, I get it, right? I think we all understand it. But we're told that Charles and Arum are going to fight in a #1 contenders match. That's what we're told. And I ask you how we got there. I ask you how, on the same night that Gaethje's going to fight Max, how do we decide that the lightweight fight that carries the most weight is Charles and Arum? And I'm going to get answered by you, and you're going to tell me rankings. That's what you're going to say. And I'm going to calmly speak to you in a condescending manner, because I love to do that, and let you know that you can take your ranking and you can shove it up your ass. It doesn't pay and it doesn't matter. The only thing that gets you money and the only thing that gets you closer to a dream is your placement on the card. So if you've got 4 jobbers fighting on the same night, it's real simple to know who's where, and it's not the ranking that you keep telling me about. It's who walks out last. And Justin Gaethje, as a champion, will walk out later than Oliveira and Arum, which means Gaethje and Max is the feature match in that weight class on that evening, which means by default, somebody else in the same weight class on the same evening cannot be at higher stakes. It is impossible. Which means Gaethje and Max is the #1 contender fight. And there's no way around that. Now, I know that we're going to fiercely adhere to whatever rules we make up as we go. I do get that. And if Max was to get the jump on Justin, you could be having a very different conversation. Particularly when Max himself says, I'm running back down to 145. You could have a very different conversation. But leading into it, we must tell the story for what it is. And somehow the current story is Arum, who's a total stud, versus Oliveira, who's awesome but does not want the fight, is going to get more focus and feature and reward than a fight in the same weight class that fights later. That's not how this game is played. It has never been played that way. If there's more weight on their fight, have them fight later. If they're the #1 contenders match, have them fight later. If they're the ones that have the mandate of the masses, the #1 thing that you need before you're going to the top of the bill of a pay-per-view, have them fight later. But they don't have any of those things. They're not fighting later. They're not fighting for the #1 contendership, which currently resides with Justin Gaethje.